It's the 15, 20 minutes that you guys get to see. What, I guess, is your initial takeaway as we dive into, kind of what this team is going to, look like here in Atlanta?
I think they're going to be still really good from last year. Like I'm not completely buying into, hey, they lost 7 defensive starters. Like, man, this thing's really going to start crumbling. I do have questions, and questions aren't necessarily a bad thing, but is Brian Thomas Jr. legit? I mean, we've been hearing about it now for a couple years of, hey, this guy's great. This guy's great. It's like he was solid when he played last year, 4.5 sacks, but can he be the Kennard level? Can he get to 8, 9 sacks? Can he be so dominant that defenses just cannot double team Dylan Stewart? That's what I'm wondering about. And then at linebacker, like I trust Fred J.R. Johnson. I think he's the next dude for South Carolina. That I have no questions there. Around him, I'm a little like, I just got to see it. They got the Justin O kid from Alabama. They got Sean Murphy, who's like been at 3 schools in 3 years. I'm like, I don't know how many guys that's like worked out for. Yeah. So that's a little like, there's a couple of those concerning things. And then at defensive tackle, I mean, Nick Barrett's been here like 5 years. And I mean, I can't think of like one play. He's been behind guys. He just hasn't played a lot. I think Gabe Brown-Lodindi out of Texas A&M is going to be an absolute stud. Could be a game wrecker. But it's just like, okay, if those are your 2 guys, like you got to rotate. Like who else is going to be in there? So, I mean, they had a lot of depth at D tackle. It kind of almost just went under the radar last year. Same thing at edge, and you lose already 3 guys there. I think the secondary is going to be fine. They basically return almost everyone. Yeah. That safety spot, you could maybe say like, hey, do you trust Peyton Williams and David Busey? But those guys played a lot last year and were good. So I don't have as many questions about the defense as others, but there certainly are a couple spots where you're like, all right, like I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. That linebacker spot again. I also think Fred is going to be a monster. I mean, his film jumps off the tape at you, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Just freak athlete, and we kind of knew that from the jump. How he went, under recruited, I guess, kind of a late bloomer, as Clayton White has kind of told us. But yeah, I think Justin O, again, project guy at Alabama, international player, right? You'd like to see him step up. Jerron Willis has been a guy that's been here for a while that, you'd like to see take that next step. But outside of Fred, I think this linebacker room is the biggest question. Luckily, you brought in some extra help on the coaching staff. And, Clayton White has been dealt this hand before at South Carolina too, where, he's been short in depth and has coached his way through the issue. What, I guess, more on the linebackers, Jordan, do you see the Gamecocks like this being a long-term issue, or do you see them developing out of it?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of, as you're mentioning what Clayton White's, coached through, I think about last year, and I think I also said it was a question mark because it was like, hey, you lose Stone Blanton and Pup Howard, and Debo Williams hadn't played a ton. Who the heck is this Demetrius Knight guy? Bam Martin Scott's hardly played. Like, what is this going to look like? Ended up being basically the strength of that South Carolina defense, kind of the leaders in the middle there. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, if Clayton White was able to do that last year, it's kind of one of those things of, hey, trust these guys in their talent evaluation. They know what they're looking for in transfers. Clayton White knows what he wants in a linebacker, and this is going to sort itself out. So if you're going to be optimistic, that's probably the stance to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned the D-line too. I also agree with that. I think, there's a lot of depth there. I wasn't really sure of, why the D-line was even in kind of a question this offseason. With what they returned Monkel Goodwine. And I think Brown-Lodindi also is going to be a stud. So I think, you're kind of just relying on Nick Barrett and the edges, right? Like, we know Dylan Stewart is going to be good. How good can he be? And the word coming out of camp is that he's bigger, better, faster, stronger. Like, does that track with what you've been seeing at camp? And how good could this defensive line really be? Can they overachieve out of last year's stance?
I don't think I wouldn't go that far. Because I think, I think the Brown-Lodindi and Monkel Goodwine players, and they can be solid. I don't think they can be to the level of, TJ Sanders and stuff last year. So there's probably a little dip, and then same thing at edge. Like I have a hard time thinking that someone's going to come and turn into Kyle Kennard. Just in what he was able to do sack-wise, tackles for loss-wise, playing off Dylan Stewart. Like, I just have a hard time seeing that. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to think there's a regression. It's just like, how much of a regression is it? Do your sack total drop in half, or does it drop by like 2 or 3?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, also you look at the position coaches too. Thank God Travian Robertson is all right. But two of the best position coaches we've heard, on the defensive side of the ball and developing talent and getting guys ready to play. So there's a little bit more optimism for that room. Jordan, I mentioned before the show, Stefan, to me, at least, it seems like a good omen for this DB room. Obviously, you're losing a little bit, but also returning a lot of starters in the defensive backfield. You brought in Brandon Cisse, a guy that Clayton White said can do both. This defensive backfield has potential to be really, really, really good. And also, that helps when you're also.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of experience there. I think Cisse can play cornerback. If Jalen Kilgore needs a breather at nickel, he can go over there. Safety, you're returning DQ Smith. You're returning Kilgore. Corner, you're returning a bunch of guys, really. And then adding Cisse to that room. And then it's really, hey, we're replacing Nick Eamon-Wari with Peyton Williams or David Busey or Gerald Kilgore or whoever. So it's like, yeah, that's about as much experience as you're going to bring back for a position group. So yeah, you got to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you get the mark of the guy who kind of started the trend, you got to feel good. Jordan, we haven't talked about the offense very much outside of, the running backs. I think this wide receiver room, in my opinion, has the highest ceiling out of anybody in this offense besides the quarterback. It's a room that needs to step up. You've got some vets in there with some young, really young studs. What are you seeing from Mike Furry's group as they enter 2025?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like there's just too much athleticism for them to suck. It seems hard to think that they're gonna like just completely crater, as kind of they did last year. And Nick Harbor, man, just to watch him run routes is like a billion times more smooth than it was last year. Catching the ball looks better. Mazio Bennett's gonna be better. And then you look at the freshmen, and if you want to just play the odds games, you're not hitting 100% on freshmen, but man, even if you only hit 30%, I mean, that's still 2 breakout stars of this wide receiver group. And, we saw Brian Rowe and Malik Clark already kind of jump out in the spring game. And I've heard Donovan Murph is right up there with those 2 guys. So it's like, all right, there's 3 dudes who are now going to be in the mix. And Mike Shula is saying, hey, there might be actually more that are playing. Maybe we get all the freshmen playing. It's like, what? So there's just too many bodies and too many guys in there, I think, for it to be bad. I think there might need to be some patience. This is just, I remember last year, it was like, God, they were touting those transfer receivers, Jared Brown and Gage Larvade and all these guys. And we get out to Old Dominion. It was like there was just drop ball after drop ball. And it was like, what is going on? So, I mean, with the freshmen, I don't want people to make just judgments off the Virginia Tech game. Like, I'll give it a couple weeks to kind of see, hey, these young guys are getting acclimated to college football.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I think, especially in the SEC too, it's going to take a little bit for a unit like that to kind of get their feet underneath them and get into a rhythm too with their quarterback. So I guess it helps with Nick Harbor not running track, full focus on football. And again, it just goes to show you what Mike Furry's been able to do with that room. Really high energy guy, one of our favorites to deal with on the beat for sure. So, it's really nice to see what he's been able to do with that room. Jordan, one of the biggest positions in college football, quite literally, the offensive line is another question mark for South Carolina. They're returning the 2 tackles in Josiah Thompson and Casey Henry. Josiah Thompson obviously being on the blind side, so Lenoris is familiar with some of his protection, but the middle, they got to return the middle of this offensive line. What have you seen from that group, and has the middle done enough to kind of shore up any doubts?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, better than last year, if only because Josiah Thompson, I mean, he had some freshman moments last season, which is not to say I think anyone would. Like, you're going to get beat up as a freshman left tackle. So he's got a whole year of experience under his belt, understands what the heck he's getting himself into every week. Casey Henry's only going to get better at right tackle. Last year, I mean, Vershawn Lee had played a little center, but he wasn't, I don't know, no one called him a center, and he was kind of thrown into that. This year, you got Boaz Stanley from Troy, who's actually a center. and has played college football. He also came in January, so he's basically had 9 months to play with Lenora Sellers. So you feel really good about that. The 2 guard spots, I mean, it's just a question mark. Like I think Trevon Baugh is probably going to win one of those. I don't know about the other. That's a little bit of a concern. But this whole group is one of those where I'm like, I'll kind of just believe it when I see it. Like, I mean, we've been hearing, the offensive line's so much better, last year. They still gave up 41 sacks. And I mean, there probably should have been another 10 that Lenore Sellers, got out of. So I just have a tough time being like, gosh, this unit's going to be a monster. It's like, I think it's going to be improved, but I got to see it. Like, I got to see it. Let's see the recruiting for the last 2 or 3 years. Like, it's time to see some progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Trevon Baugh is a guy that, you talk about being thrown into the fire. His first start was against Georgia. So I think it, does some good if he wins out that starting job at guard, just have some experience in the SEC. Like, he was thrown into the fire and, got dinged up and been banged up too. So, you want him to be consistent, and add some consistency. Bo Stanley, as you mentioned, a true center. It's awesome to have a true center in there. And again, that's what 16 needs is consistency at this point. So really good stuff out of the offensive line there. And again, shoring things up as they go into the new year.